Since listing agents can have very different negotiating styles, it is crucial to keep the notes on every single listing agent you work with. This is going to help you adapt to their working style when you do another deal with them. I personally like to use Microsoft OneNote or my CRM to actually add these agents into the CRM itself, or to just keep a small profile on each of these agents. Who are they? How do they represent? How is their negotiating style? Are they open and friendly? Have they already exposed who their family is and their friends and how they want to work together? Take a note. So the next time you call Bill, you call Barbara, and you're working with them again, you already know and you can follow up immediately. Hey, just a quick recap from the last time you and I worked together a couple of years ago. How's your husband? How are your kids? How's your family? How's real estate doing for you? Don't make it all about business. By keeping those notes, it's going to build a style and a rapport right out of the gate, and you don't have to recapture that the next time you do business with someone else. Hell, they might even refer work to you. There are listing agents that actually end up in a transaction where they're representing both sides, and they don't want to do that, and neither does the buyer. The buyer at some point may feel a little negative towards, I feel like you're representing the seller more than you're representing me. You're stepping outside of the transaction agent role. I want to be represented by myself. I want sole representation. The agent that you did good work with, I've got a lot of other agents I have worked with. Here's just a couple of names that maybe you can call and interview, Mr. Buyer, to see if you want to work with them. I really like working with Alex. He's a professional. He's going to do what's in your best interest. He's going to be fair on both sides of the table, and he's not going to make everything a beat down. So don't think for 1 second you can't get referrals from other agents, because that's the best way to do it. But the things that you want to make notes on, especially about other agents, is how do they communicate? Do they prefer phone calls or text? Will they be responsive? Are they a part-time agent and they're only going to be able to respond after their normal workday or during their lunch breaks? How long did it take them to traditionally respond to an email? This is all really useful data when you're going to be working with your client, so that you can, again, talk about your strategy in advance, saying, hey, I've worked with Bill before. I've worked with Barbara before. This is how they communicate. It may take us till the end of the day before we hear anything when I shoot an email across the bow. So make sure you're just keeping close notes, and you want to make absolutely sure that you're representing them and yourself as well. Escalation clauses, making the paperwork start the negotiations for you. I really like the escalation clauses. It helps a lot. It speeds up negotiations because some of these things are timestamped, and it gives your client a real leg up when it comes to multiple offer situations, which certainly, if interest rates go down at all, and if we start getting more of a market boom and there's more housing availability in Florida, our pricing is very, very stable here right now, and it continues to creep up as expected. It's very traditional market here in Florida, and right now it's very negotiative. So both sides understand they need to come to the table with something. It's a give market, which is really nice. But language that we're going to use on offers and counter offers when it comes to escalation clauses is important. It means that you are here to make a serious offer, and if we do this faster, there may be some additional monies or compensations for the seller if they will get us under contract sooner. I usually put a traditional escalation language in my contracts paragraph, but there are escalation addendums now that are available in the state of Florida, and it certainly is a nice checkbox, ease of use kind of scenario. So if you want to really speed up escalations and make sure that you know that you're in a hot market, and now they know you're in a hot market or in a hot neighborhood or community, then the escalation clause is a great way to go, and it starts competition to get the deal done. It sets the tone right out of the gate. Let's talk about multiple offers for a minute, because if you're representing the seller side, this can be daunting is a great word for it. It can be overwhelming for the seller. The contract language wasn't designed for people to easily read it, quite honestly, and Florida is probably one of the best at the legibility of the language that is presented in its contracts. But I have to say, when it comes to multiple offers, and we've dealt with a lot of times where markets swung this way, It is critical that I present multiple offers in person or at minimum in camera with my clients. It becomes a reading the room. And you need to make absolutely sure, agents, this is a pro note for you. If you are in a multiple offer situation, you need to present every single offer. Whether you believe it's beneficial to the client or not, does not matter. I'm going to say that again. It is not the agent's decision of whether or not to accept an offer. It is the client's home. It is the seller's value. It is their expectation of how this deal is going to go through. And they're allowed to trust their gut. They're allowed to say, okay, Alex, you told me about these 5 offers. I realize the one that I'm choosing is not the most money, but it's shorter on time, or it's better in concessions, or they waived an inspection. It's things that's going to get me to the closing table in a more secure fashion. This is the one I'm going to choose. And I'm going to say it for the 3rd time. Their choice. Get off their back. Stop putting our clients under unnecessary pressure. We make sure that our client reads through every single offer together, even if it's a backup offer after we're already under contract. If they want to hear about the offers, we absolutely tell them, and we review each and every one of them with them. If they have more challenging questions, we have lawyers that are on retainer, so we can make absolutely sure that they're getting their legal questions answered as well, because that is not our lane. We are not lawyers, and we can never represent ourselves as understanding legal language. If you're unable to actually meet them in person and go over the multiple offers with them, at minimum, again, please do a video call, do a Zoom meeting or Google Meets or anything that you need to do to be able to see their faces, read the room, and walk through each of the points of the contract, not the one that you just think is the most interesting to them. You should never lead your clients down a specific path. You should absolutely keep them informed, keep them educated. Your job as a beacon of truth is to make absolutely sure to follow your fiduciary responsibilities, and honest representation is one of the primary notes of that sheet of music. Share your screen, make sure that they're seeing what you're seeing and they're reading it the same way, because remember, they don't deal with 100 contracts in a year. They aren't going to have the level of experience. Sure, they might have sold a house or 2. That is expected, but they are not going to be in a situation to where they're selling houses in the same state. The contracts are still the same year over year. All of those things change. Your clients need to see what you are talking them through. All right. Also, of course, make sure that you are answering their questions to the best of your ability. Stay out of the legal lane. Again, if it becomes a legal problem, get your attorney on the line and make absolutely sure they can join you in that video call if necessary. Negotiations before paper. It is perfectly acceptable for you to begin negotiations and start negotiation deal points over the phone with the cooperating brokerage and cooperating realtor before you take it to paper. You want to feel them out, right? Boxers don't just jump in the ring and start swinging fists. They actually meet on a stage. They get introduced. They get called into the center of the ring. There is a back and forth. There is a little bit of chatter before you finally start getting into the act of the negotiation and the fight itself. So make absolutely sure that you're taking advantage of that. But remember, you are negotiating with an agent. So they still have to get back to a client and represent everything that you have brought to the table appropriately. If this is a counteroffer situation, or if this is a multiple counteroffer situation, you're going to want to absolutely make sure that you were favorable in the relationship with the agent on the other side of the table, or it's going to make things just complicated for both of you. Which brings us, of course, to data. You should arm yourselves with data. And here at Keystone, we represent a little bit different way. We are not just real estate agents here. We are also consultants, which means we study differently. We use factual data. We use written evidence to support all of the things that we say. We are not just selling and sales agents. We absolutely are beacons of truth. When we open our mouth and represent something to a client, it needs to be supportable by written fact. And I'm not talking about here's one Google search to support my opinion. It is fact-based only. The adage in real estate is, always been location, location, location. But when it comes to negotiations, it's data, data, data. Let the data drive the negotiations and the decisions that are made behind it. You gathering information and leveraging it to your advantage is the key to having more information than the other side, quite honestly. The person armed with the most amount of this data is more likely going to be the one to win the negotiation because you've got more cards in your hand than the person on the other side of the table. They are relying on little to no data in front of them and relying on just sales acumen and not necessarily supporting all of it with fact, more opinion-based. You should have a full understanding of the alternatives in a negotiated agreement. If their negotiations fail, what are the other options for the buyer and the seller if you can't seem to get past that? But again, the data is always going to come back around to the conversation. So have it readily available. Make sure you're taking notes on every one of your transactions. Again, OneNote or your CRM is excellent for this kind of thing. So make sure that you're handling your business appropriately. Negotiating can absolutely occur with a win-win perspective. There is no reason why you have to start off on a difficult footing. Many, especially the new agents, sorry guys, the new agents make the mistake of starting off every single negotiation as if they're going into battle. And I realize I use the word fight a lot in our session today. The fight itself is just a representation of a negotiation. I enjoy the fight. Big air quotes there for you. But this will not only become annoying inside of negotiating, but the agent on the other side of the deal most likely is not going to want to work with you in this deal or in another deal either. It will also hurt the client's interest if you walk in on that negative footing. Instead, I suggest you learn how to focus on solutions instead of turning everything into an adversarial crisis. Your client and fellow agents will thank you. They will appreciate working with you. And once you get past that initial negotiating flag, it's going to make it really simple to work together through the rest of the milestones of the process this way. Don't be afraid of the power of yes, and don't be afraid to allow them to have as many wins as you have. The power of yes is incredible. No one likes to be coerced into doing something. Really smart negotiators can often subtly encourage the other side of the table to make it their idea. Them getting a yes out of you, whether or not you negotiated it that way, doesn't matter. It makes it a more inclusive conversation and allows each side to feel that they've gotten equal wins for themselves and for their clients. Studies have certainly shown that affirming language like, you'll probably refuse, but here's what I'm offering, leads to more increased compliance, more agreement. I don't know whether you follow Josh Flagg or not, $1 Million Listing star, right? But he has an example of how you can apply a certain technique like this in a negotiating with a seller. The buyer asks for you to pick up the closing cost to seal the deal, for example. You're free to say no to that, but of course, why wouldn't you be willing to consider it? And that's the approach. Hey, I realize this is a shot in the dark, but my clients could really use some additional cash to closing to help them to seal the deal. Is it something that you can talk to your sellers about to see if they're willing to consider it? Again, make it their idea. Give them the bullets that you need to win the battle. It's an easy solution. It keeps the conversation going. And even though you are setting the stage for what you want, you're not pushing your ideal down their throat. You're giving them, would you mind negotiating some of the following things for their consideration? And an argument wouldn't be yes without having a few no's. So don't be afraid to master this superpower either. In real estate, many agents underestimate the power of no, especially when they're under contract